Welcome to Act 2 You're On. Join us weekly at our studio roundtable as Rhonda, Kate, and Linda invite spectacular guests to weigh in on staying sexy, vibrant, and healthy. Launch your next great act with authenticity and purpose.
Summon your courage, superstar, and step into the limelight. So grab a coffee
or a martini,
and let's set the stage for a grand entrance. It's Act 2.
You're on.
Greetings, friends, and welcome. My name is Kate Levy, and I am joined by these two glorious characters, my A2YO co-hosts.
I'm Linda Ty. I'm Rhonda Garvin-Conaway.
Friends, I am delighted to talk to one of my personal gurus today, a mentor, a soul sister, generally one of the coolest cats I've ever known, and certainly one of the most gifted and intellectually curious people I know, Lisa Giallonardo. But first, for our listeners, many of you are at a point of transition. I mean, who isn't, right? Life is all about reinvention. In fact, it is Lisa Giallonardo who said these very words to me about 10 years ago at a really significant point of transition for me. So listeners, have you ever been faced with necessity, the dilemma, the challenge of reinvention? Well, you've tuned into the right conversation. Let me tell you about Lisa Giallonardo, who is an orthopedic physical therapist with a subspecialty in the foot and ankle, who works at a locally owned private practice called Preservation Physical Therapy and Wellness in the Boston area. Lisa has over 40 years of experience as a physical therapist with extensive doctoral work in organizational behavior and academic administration at Boston University. She has lectured extensively on clinical teaching and administrative topics throughout the United States. Lisa chaired the Musculoskeletal Panel for the Guide to Physical Therapy Practice, facilitating a national team of specialists documenting how to treat patients with orthopedic injuries. Lisa also founded a Montessori school, belongs to 3 books clubs, is an active member of museums all around the United States, Canada, and Europe. She has founded the Metro West Boston group called Sound and Spirit, very dear to my heart, a multi-generational singing group. She is one of the best cooks I know, no joke. I know, and that she has a deep and abiding faith that gives her life direction, and she has shared that with teens in the form of religious education for 40 years. Welcome to one of the most remarkable people I know, Lisa Giallonardo.
Thank you.
Welcome, friends. So I'm just going to dive right in and say, what a difference that conversation. You probably don't even know it because I know people come to you all the time with their not only their physical needs, but their emotional needs, spiritual needs. And we were just having a cup of coffee and I was at a point of transition and you said, reinvention, it's what life's all about. I've reinvented myself so many times, I can't even count. So how did you come to have that spirit that was so okay with change?
That's interesting. I hate to be bored. I'm very curious and I don't like to be complacent. And when I get to a point where it's not exciting anymore, where I'm not really learning what I want to learn, where the people aren't really filling me with excitement and purpose, I begin to think maybe now's the time to do something different.
You have a very busy career. You have these lovely grandchildren that you also are a big part of their lives. You belong to these book clubs. You are an avid museum goer. You sing. You help with religious ed. I mean, and somehow you do this and it doesn't seem, you're like not one of those people who say, I'm so busy. You just take it all in stride. I'm curious, how do you do that? I need the recipe for that as well, please.
I don't know, Kate. I have a bit of excessive energy, I like to say. I just love life. I love to do things. I love to be filled and really find new adventures and new information and stimulation. And it's not just one thing. It's a lot of different things. I hate to be kind of pigeonholed and really think, well, I read the same kind of book. I listen to the same kind of music. I can't do that. I need to know as much as I can and be exposed to many different things.
That is so cool. And can imagine that many people are listening and they may have thought similar things to you. And they've felt like, I don't want to be doing this activity anymore. And this doesn't fill me. And I am curious about this other thing, but they feel maybe they should continue and they shouldn't make a change. How do you make these decisions for yourself about what you're going to do and how you're going to do them? How do you have that internal drive and knowing and power to be definitive about those choices?
It's interesting, Rhonda. I think that the way that one does that is to know yourself extremely well, to know your strengths and to know your weaknesses, to be really honest about that, and also know whether you're doing the best that you can do. I think that complacency is just deadly. It prevents you from being who you can be and how you can be. And so for me, when I'm not excited anymore, when I don't feel like I'm doing a good job, and I'm my own best and worst critic, I'm a perfectionist. I feel like if I don't do it really, really, really well, then I shouldn't be doing it anymore. And I always look at, what can I do better? How can I use my skills? What would make me excited? What opportunities are there that I should take advantage of? When I was working at Mass General, I had been out, maybe 5 years, something like that. And I had been in the clinic. The clinic, as you can imagine, was very intense and very stressful, seeing people from all over the world, and expectations were sky high. And there wasn't a lot of joy at that time. And I remember being offered the opportunity to teach a class at Northeastern, my alma mater. And I was so intimidated. I thought, I've been out 5 years. What do I know? Why am I teaching, movement to a group of students? But I thought, well, I love an audience. Let's be clear. I have always been someone who loves to be on stage. And so I thought, well, I'm not afraid of teaching. I'm just afraid I won't do a good job. I decided that I was going to try it. And I did. And I studied and I did the hard work, and I was nervous, but nerves, of course, allow you to really, really be sharp. They give you that little adrenaline rush that makes you very clear about what you're doing. And I remember looking out at the class and thinking, okay, I know more than they do. I'm 5 years older than they are. How can I not know? And I just did it. Good preparation, a little self-confidence, a deep breath. And then at the end of the day, every time I did a lecture, on my way home, driving home from Boston, I would think, did I do a good job? What would I have done differently? What was I not happy with? And the next time, try to change that, try to do better next time. And I think that really, really helps when you know what you're good at, when you aren't terribly afraid to take a risk, and when you jump in feet first with a smile. I think you can be very successful.
That is just a really very wise words of wisdom and a beautiful way to put it. Because I wanted to ask a little bit about, you're like the Renaissance woman, you're just capable of doing so many things. And so, but I think all of us probably have some of these inclinations or these like, oh, maybe could I do that or could I not? And can you talk to us about, so it seems like you are somebody who's just not afraid to fail. Like, you're like, you know what? I'll figure it out. I like the idea. I'll figure it out. So can you talk to us about that mindset of, what if I fail or not being afraid to fail?
It's funny, Linda, for many years, I commuted to and from Boston, both to Northeastern. And when I was in the service, I was working in Brighton, and then I was working at Mass General. And my dad and I would often commute together. And he would often say to me, everything happens for a reason. Just be clear that you understand who you are and what you bring to the table. Many years later, when I was doing my doctoral work, I was incredibly inspired by an organizational behaviorist by the name of Peter Drucker. And Peter Drucker would always look at a situation when he finished it and say, what went well? What happened? Did I expect that to happen? What surprised me? What could I have done better? And then the next time, how will I use what I learned to actually do a better job? And I guess that if I look at failure as a perfectionist, it's frightening. As an eternal optimist, it's puzzling. But on the flip side, if I always understand who I am and what I can do and what I can't do, and be true to myself, and to really understand how I'm affecting other people, and whether I'm bringing positive energy, whether I'm bringing healing energy, whether I'm bringing my best self, I think that means that if I'm honest, if I really look at the situation and say, this isn't working, I don't feel good about it, I'm disappointed, maybe I'm grieving about it, but then I have to pick myself up and move on, because I know I have what it takes to move on. And I think that failure's hard for everybody, but honest self-reflection is absolutely critical. Painful, terribly uncomfortable, maybe something that you only want to share with yourself. Maybe it's something that you write in a journal, that you really evaluate yourself in a way that you don't want anybody else to know about your flaws. But if you're honest about them, then you can pick up and make a change and do the best at something new and something different.
You made a great comment before about the power of nerves, that they sharpen your mind and bring creativity. As a leader, I think it's easy for people to think, oh, she's not afraid of public speaking. You are a very gifted public speaker. And I think that it's not that you are fearless, it's that you're brave, and you've come, through enough life experience that you've kind of adapted. And you and I have had many an interesting conversation about perfectionism and from good to great. And you always kind of bristle because I say I believe in goodish, and that would be another interesting podcast. We could have that conversation another day. But I think it's easy for people to kind of point to other people and say, "Oh, that person's got it. They've always got it. They're just a leader, and I'm not." And I wonder if you can speak to that a little bit.
I think to be a really effective leader, you have to understand yourself. You need to be able to read people. Kate, if you don't understand how people are responding to you, what they need from you, what they need for themselves, what the organization, the company, whatever needs, if you're not in tune with others as well as yourself, it's very hard to lead. Ego it can very much get in the way of being an effective leader. I think great leaders are humble, and I think you come to being humble through failure. All leaders fail. All leaders won't tell you they fail, but it's what they learn from failure. It's what they've learned from the people they lead. That makes them better, makes them be able to lead, and to know what they're good at and what they're not good at, and to surround themselves with people who are smarter than them, and fill those gaps that they don't have. As the leader, you don't have to be good at everything. You just have to be smart enough to know what you're not good at. so you can bring other people around. I think that I had a small stint at running the Montessori school and as kind of an interim. And I remember thinking to myself, well, okay, I'm an educator. I understand how to lead people. I'm not a Montessori teacher. I don't pretend to be one, but I know how to surround myself with people who do understand Montessori, who do understand elementary education, who do understand the things that I really don't. And so I gave them the power and the support that they needed in order to be the best that they could be, which ultimately made everybody look good. And also, I think too that leaders that I don't respect are leaders who take credit for things that aren't theirs, that don't really give the people who support them the kudos that they deserve when they've done something that really helps the group, the organization, the business, whatever it is. And I think that's very important because that makes the people who you lead respect you because they know that you know what they're capable of and how they contribute as a whole.
You're knowing yourself. I hope that everyone out there is just taking that in, that they may also feel empowered to feel that way about themselves. Can you imagine how powerful the world would be if each of us adopted that kind of thinking about who we are on the planet? And for you, it's evident it's created this big life and varying interests and pursuits. How do you go about managing all of that? So let's say, okay, we know ourselves, we've got that, but the world's so big. There's so much to do. How do you go about managing it? And do you sleep at all?
It's really interesting. One of the things that I value the most, and certainly the thing that I protect the most, is my sleep. All through my whole life, college years, I was never the kid who pulled the all-nighter. I was a kid who needed 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And now I'm the adult who needs 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And I think I found the most challenging time when my children were very young and had their own, challenges sleeping. And I think probably the worst thing I've ever felt in my life was sleep deprivation. So I will tell you, one of the things, and probably the most important thing I do, is I protect my sleep time. I hydrate like a fiend. I truly believe that drinking water and keeping yourself really fluid is a very, very healthy thing. I move. If I don't move at least 5 to 10,000 steps a day, no matter what I'm doing, I become very, very low energy and I almost can't pick myself up and move forward. Do you know what I mean, Rhonda? It's like, this is what I need to get going. And it's counterintuitive. Well, I'm tired. I don't feel like moving, but moving clearly, even if it's walking up and down the stairs a half a dozen times, maybe just enough to keep me going. And the other thing is every single day without fail, I pray. Generally at night before I go to sleep. And it's a habit I've had my whole life, to be thankful for the God-given gifts that I have and the ability to use them, and sorry for the things that I didn't do or did poorly.
Well, that's a masterclass.
Yes, it really is.
Absolutely.
And I think so much of the world draws us outward that we don't spend enough time inward. So whether you're a person who does have a faith tradition or you want to start a gratitude list, call it whatever you want, but that time to be quiet, to be grateful, to think about how did I live my day? How do I want to intend to live my life tomorrow? Do we ask ourselves, though, in those quiet moments, those important questions that just center us? That's what this, it's funny because we talk a lot about the mindfulness movement. I think it's a return to contemplation, and whatever your walk of life, it does kind of set your brain for the next day of 24 brand new hours. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant actually that you do it at night, because I've read a lot of research about the theta, sleep phase. And if you're practicing gratitude and you're asking the questions, how can I be better? Before you go to sleep, your brain solves the problems, and you put yourself in a place of gratitude while you sleep, and you wake up in a different, in a very positive place. So I think that's really brilliant that you do that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you. I think that's really, I think quiet time is critical. Absolutely critical to be alone with yourself. I do think people are very afraid of that.
It's hard to imagine that we can add more to this conversation that has value, but we're going to try by asking you this next question. So as you can imagine, we've talked about this with our listeners, that so many people are working on a project or their next season of life, or they've got a big dream and they're wondering how they're going to do it. What golden nugget or piece of advice or little piece of wisdom that you carry with you would you offer to those out there trying to make it work for themselves?
It's interesting, Rhonda. I just read in one of my book groups, I read a book called Finding Freedom by Erin French. And Erin French is the chef owner of one of the most sought after reservations in the country, the Lost Kitchen in Freedom, Maine. They get 20,000 reservation requests a year. And this young woman really overcame enormous odds in order to make this happen. And one of the things she said in the book, which I thought was brilliant, was logic is the death of dreams.
Ooh. That is a good
So when you think about that, you think, okay, in order to do something new, in order to start a new business, change a career, even just change a place of employment, you need to have some real detail. You need to, have a process. You need to understand how you get from point A to point B. However, I think that if you have this overarching vision of what you see yourself or the company or the job, if you have that vision, and then you just put those pieces in place, step by step by step, knowing when you need help, knowing who might help you, knowing that there's going to be stumbles, there's going to be I can't believe you're doing this. Why are you doing this? You don't need to do this. All those people kind of, giving you this feedback that maybe that's not so positive, but always in the center is that vision that you have. I can do this. I want to start that. I really want to be in a situation where I'm working with people that feed me, that make me happy. If you keep that vision at the center and then keep moving forward, knowing the people to surround yourself with, I truly believe that's the way to do it.
That is amazing. And those things often do defy logic.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Absolutely. Well, I have been assigned the regrettable task of timekeeper. And so that means that we're almost at the end of our time together, but I just want to ask you one more thing, Lisa. What is next for you?
Oh, Linda, that's a great question. I'm not quite sure. I'll be honest with you. I'm clearly not ready to stop working. I love treating patients. I think it is the most wonderful gift that you can do for someone, to give them a healing touch, to give them your energy and your wisdom. I just think that's such a gift. But I want to see more great art. I want to read more fabulous books. I want to drink more amazing wine. I just want to travel to places that I've not seen before, that really excite me. And so I don't have any specific plans, but I know that I have 3 amazing little grandchildren who I want to spend time with, and I want to watch them grow, and I want to be a part of their life. So that's kind of a roundabout way of saying I tend to have some dreams, but take one day at a time. Make plans that feed me, make plans that excite me, have no regrets. I think that's important. If I want to do something, but it's hard or it's inconvenient, I always think, am I going to regret not doing this tomorrow? And that really spurs me on to doing things that might be harder than I want them to be. So I don't know. Stay tuned.
Well, wherever
you're
going next,
ahead.
I want to go with you. and drink the
wine.
More
the merrier. Sounds great to me.
Thank you, Lisa, for this conversation. To our folks listening, one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself are people who can support you and teach you something. So finding mentors like Lisa, but she's mine. No, she's many people's mentor. But there are wise people out there, and go buy them a cup of coffee and talk interesting talks with them, and hear the books they're reading, and ask them your questions that are hard for you to figure out on your own. And I think a mentor is a great, great gift. And I can't thank you enough for, all that you've added to my life for sure, but for this conversation and for the inspiration for folks listening at home. We wish you nothing but the best. And we're going to tune in and find out what was Lisa's next great adventure.
So amazing.
Thank you for having me, ladies. It was really wonderful speaking to you.
Thank you. And if folks want to learn more about what you're doing professionally, I understand preservation PT and wellness.com.
Yes,
is the place to go.
That's my current place of employment. And it's a wonderful environment that really is additive to the community too, as well.
Wonderful.
And so it's left to me to say, go forth, be brave, live well, and do good, because it's Act 2.
You're on.
Act 2, You're On was brought to you by Act 2, Share Our Stage.
You can find us at a2yo.com and also on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Please listen and subscribe wherever you find your podcast. You can support us using Patreon. Thanks for listening.